Okay, I think yes, we look good. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the AK Pallav Show, where we bring stories of people who've decided to make a slightly different journey for their life. They are the adventurers who felt the desire to explore the world and take on challenges in a completely different side of the planet. And today we have with us Mr. Samrat. I don't know how in the world has he managed to pull off what he has done so far. He's lived in 7 different countries, worked with almost 10 different startups, not just startups, smaller as well as big companies, and has ended up at the point where he is now leading a content and commerce company out of Dubai, which is fantastic for us as podcast hosts, as content creators, that we have someone who's actually content creators make their journey more sustainable and more profitable for their lives. So once again, Samrat, very warm welcome, very excited. I think I want to start off by saying, how in the world have you managed to do all of this so far, man? What keeps you going?
Hey guys, thank you for having me, Akshay, Pallav, uh, and thanks for the awesome introduction. I don't think anybody has ever said that. How does he pull it off? I have not done anything that great yet. Hopefully, good things to happen soon. Um, but like, what keeps me going? I think one thing you said right was, the need for adventure. I am slightly thrill seeking, risk taking. I like chaos. I like getting into new things because I strongly believe uh, that when you get comfortable, things are not fun anymore. And I think most importantly, I'm extremely impatient, right? I get bored with things fairly easily, so I need some excitement going on in my life. And one of the things uh, that I did is hence the moving around all of these countries, going to some really random places. Some of my friends say, but just making sure that there is something different, something new, and it has frankly opened up my eyes to the world and opened up my eyes to different cultures. And I'm a bong, so we like to be cultured, right? So uh, and according to my mom, I wasn't really right. Grew up in Chandigarh, Delhi, etc. And my mom was like, look at your Bengali forefathers. They were so learned and this and that. They've traveled the world. So I then decided, okay, let's try and do that. So simply put, I like excitement and adventure and putting myself in situations which are not the or which are not ordinary, because I think that leads to growth as well, personally, professionally, etc.
And if you
Like,
would
could you
ask,
give us some? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, go on, Pala.
I was saying, could you give us some more color? Where you come from? What's your family background? Where did you grow up?
So I was born in Delhi, but as I said, I'm a bong. So my parents moved around quite a bit across Delhi, Calcutta. My dad was in Maruti and like some factory mechanical stuff he did. So he moved around stuff as well. And then, so yeah, I was pretty much born in Delhi. Then we moved to Chandigarh, or close to Chandigarh, because there was this, Maruti factory in a place called Baddi. So we moved there, and pretty much all my childhood is there, right? So Chandigarh, Panchkula, and that area, because I think I was 3 when we moved, so I don't really remember Delhi. I just remember moving on a day where it was raining like mad, and I just remember crying, but I was a baby, so it's okay. So that's where I grew up. Schooling was there. Then, like I think every slightly smart Indian wanted to get into engineering and an IIT and things like that. Didn't exactly work out. Like really, I think really tried uh, focusing and didn't get the JE rank I wanted. So ended up, with a very fairly decent AI triple E rank, etc. And got into PEC, and that's where Punjab Engineering College, where Akshay is from as well, and basically studied there. So I would say all the way till I'm 20, I'm in Chandigarh and around, right? Some of my family is in Delhi, etc. and then my dad passed away when I was in 10th, but we stayed around that region. My mom was working, and we had friends, family friends, etc. there. So yeah, engineering then, and honestly didn't know what I wanted to do. Took up computer science because that's what people said you should do, right? Like take electronics, CS, whatever, if you have the rank to get it,
Yeah.
take those things. Hated coding, honestly, hated it. And I think I'd never really applied myself in undergrad. I don't know if what are your stories, but like I was like, ho gaya bahut, like, we've studied enough. Now is the time to have fun. But I was always into music, so pretty much did music and things around that in undergrad. So, but as I was saying, didn't know what to do. Just did the standard stuff, whatever, wherever get placements happen, we'll go there and pretty much mm, do whatever job, right? Something that pays us. Uh, Fortunately, I think very fortunately, gave CAT and got a fairly good result. Went to IIM Calcutta, then didn't have to work because I don't think I was ready to work. So went to IIM Calcutta again, this time with a very focused whatever that I would. There are certain things I want to learn, and the professors are amazing, etc. I'm not saying I did that exactly, right? It took me again 2-3 months to get back into my old ways again, pretty much music and things around that and
Yeah,
so on.
I would have said
uh,
that's not what I know you from I am Calcutta at least.
no, but I went with the right intentions.
Yes.
What happened is a different story, right? Life happens, so something else happened. But it was a lot of fun. I think I met some amazing people. For the first time in my life, I had respect for my teachers, honestly. Like before that, I would always think that, why is this person teaching me? And it might sound arrogant or rude or whatever, but that's just how I was. And, I was naive and I thought I was amazing and things like that. But in Calcutta, for the first time, I really liked the people around me, the teachers who were teaching me, really smart people, and not just like bookish smart, right? Like good to talk to. We used to have like intellectual discussions till whatever till midnight and so on. So did that, and then I think when after I got out of IIM Calcutta, one of our seniors. So I'm always very thankful to Joka. One of our seniors who was with Rocket Internet, leading one of their ventures, randomly called me saying like, what are you planning to do, and like, why would you want to do like a normal job? You'll keep making PPTs. Let's, this is something we have just started. You anyways have a problem with authority, so don't think like a standard job would work for you. So come over here, we are friends, we'll work, we'll chill,
And
and so
how
on.
did
So
you know him?
that's, I think, he was one of our seniors from Joka.
Ah, okay, just 1 year senior. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So, and we were friends and we used to hang out,
What
etc.
year
Then
are we talking? Which year?
this is 2013. This is
Okay.
2013, right? So so then I pretty much, yes, from there moved to Delhi. So this was Rocket Internet was set up there. They were running Food Panda, Jabong, Fab Furnish, etc. This guy was the CEO or COO, co-founder COO of Fab Furnish, which was a online furnishing sort of a startup, and it was hilarious. Honestly, I loved the guy. He was an asshole to me a lot of the times, but I like really credit him for just getting me on that path of really wanting to work and doing something, etc., because he pretty much, I went, he gave me entire customer experience, right? So he said like NPS or net promoter score is your KPI. It has to be above above 70% and and it was negative at that point because it had only been like 6 months that the company had
Who
started,
who exactly
and
are we talking about, by the
there
way?
were huge issues. His name is Mehul.
Oh,
He's now the COO of Cars 24.
that's what I was like just thinking about, because of course, like when Cars 24 started, Mehul is the one who brought me into Cars 24. So, and I
Yeah.
worked with him on sort of similar topics for like or whatever, almost like a span of 3 years. So I can totally relate to the character that you are referring to. अरे कि यार क्या करोगे, आप अच्छा काम
Exactly. And it was so funny. He gave me all of that, and then he gave me like this whole very complicated sort of NPS sheet, and then he was like कि अरे तू तो I'm Calcutta से है तो ये तो मतलब 5 minute का काम है. And literally I'm telling you, man, I had never even done anything on Excel and macros and shit like that, right? And he just gave it to me and said like, from tomorrow you are running it. And then I remember I I had to go through like a whole night of like scouring YouTube videos and tutorials and shit to figure out कि इसको करना कैसे. So but anyways, so I didn't want to let him down, and so I did it, and I think it was a very quick learning curve, etc. And he would keep pushing me, and he knew that I was super competitive, so he would keep using that as a way, like कि अरे यार, this dude has come from ISB, he's saving more money or he's doing something more, what are you doing, उपजोका का नाम डुबा रहे हो. Like, so this was his way of motivating me, which worked. So I love that part because it was CX as a role. It gave me pretty much an end-to-end understanding of how an e-commerce marketplace or a business would work, right? So starting off from vendor onboarding to like product quality to delivery logistics. I think marketing was the only piece I didn't touch upon. I didn't have projects around because maybe not really exactly related to CX. But then delivery logistics, because it was a furnishing business, then after sales service, customer service, etc. So it just like pretty much it was a blank slate. I would figure out, okay, NPS is down because product quality is bad, so we need to figure out some vendor scorecard, make sure that product quality is good, or we are sending beds which are broken, so which means something is off with logistics, and we need to like figure out how do we do long haul logistics for big things, right? E-commerce was generally, and logistics was a big problem statement, given e-commerce was for small parcels. When you have beds and solid wood furniture and things like that going around things, it is different. So loved it, was super intense. And I think I related to the Rocket style of working. It is chaotic, it is intense. There was no time for me to even feel bored. So I think that's why I was with Rocket for the longest part of my career as well. And I learned loads of things. So then from Rocket Internet India, I moved then to Rocket APAC.
And where was that?
So I moved to Bangladesh and I was made, and exactly the expression now Pallav gave is everybody, all of my friends are like, people are moving to the US, people are moving to Europe. Why are you going to Bangladesh? Like, why will you go to a country like perceived to be whatever, right? And I was like, man, like, it doesn't matter. It's an adventure. We'll see what happens and so on. And it was because the one thing was that it was one of the founding roles. So it was 3 people setting up the company. And I was shit scared because I was like, fuck, I won't be able to do this. But
Wait,
then I was like,
was this because your bong background played a role in this, or
because
Okay.
they didn't even know, because like the dudes who interviewed me, one was French, one was Estonian, one was whatever. They didn't even know me, right? They just knew me within the Rocket Internet whole ecosystem. Then they spoke about it, etc. I didn't even tell them that I know the language, but it was a very big advantage I had. But so went to Bangladesh, and honestly was very extremely scared that I won't be able to pull this off. And my mom would say, like, what the fuck, like, you've worked for 1.5 years, and how are they making you, like, they're asking you to set up something, and what, because Rocket would give you these sort of managing director and co-founder roles, right? Like, obviously you'll have single digit 1 point something whatever equity, but they will give you those sort of roles. And my mom would make fun of me, like, कि कितने लोगों का managing director है तू, like, what are you trying to do, right? But it was fun. So I was number 3, right? There was nothing, there was no office. We were sitting out of our hotel rooms figuring out what to do, got an office, started hiring people, and then Rocket would give you the basic tech, right? So you'll have the basic tech, you can then build up upon it, etc. And all of us were previous Rocket people, so we knew the tech, at least. That was the one advantage we had. But we set up everything, hired people, like, it went from 1 room to 2 rooms to a huge building. right, within the span of a year. And I was pretty much looking after like what a COO sort of would look after, not the commercial or the marketing functions, but everything related to from vendor onboarding to product quality, like what I was doing with in India as well. So something similar,
Can I have a
logistics,
little
warehousing,
request?
etc.,
Sorry,
etc.
I'm interrupting you.
Sure.
Like as you go through this journey, can you really try to maybe bring out like maybe one moment that was really like the highlight, or one moment that was really like oh absolutely it went everything went to shit, like as you go through this, so that we can hear some of those extreme moments, that's what really
I'll
makes
I'll
a
tell you
conversation.
what.
Hmm. Any
I
fun
it's
stories from Dhaka?
No, I'll tell you like Dhaka stories, man. Like, so uh, we set things up. The first big, I would say, not shock, but surprise for me was just like in India, we have loads of people and loads of educated, talented people, right? Like, and you would be able to like very quickly build up a team and run
Mm-hmm.
things. Dhaka at that point, now it is very different, but Dhaka at that point was slightly different. People didn't have any sort of digital exposure in terms of how would you run an e-commerce digital business, or like, parcel logistics. And I was looking at like, who could do like logistics for us, and people were like, no, we can move like boxes of stuff, like, but we can't move like one parcel. How will we pick up from 100 different people, deliver to 1,000 different people? So we had to set all of that up ourselves as well. But I think like one funny story is, and this is again something like which I had learned from Mehul, right? Whenever you would interview people, and I'm not sure now if that is the right thing or not, but one thing we used to do was test them mathematically, right? Like, कि number कर पा रहा है कि नहीं. So I
Mm-hmm.
used to have this set of standard 3 sort of mathematical puzzle, parallel
Yeah.
thinking sort of questions, which I used to always ask in India. And then I went to Bangladesh. I remember it. But I'll tell you one hilarious story, right? So there is this puzzle about, there are like 25 horses. How many attempts will it take you to find the top 3, right? It's like it can be either
Mm-hmm.
done on Excel and whatever, but it's like a standard sort of puzzle. And I remember one dude I was interviewing in Bangladesh for like, say, a head of 3PL, head of ops kind of a role, and he literally said, I will see who eats more grass, and then that guy will be the fastest. And then I was like, what the fuck is happening? And so that was a big shock. So we ended up, then what we ended up doing is that, people from the industry wouldn't work. So we pretty much went to like the decent colleges and hired like just freshers pretty much, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
absolute blank freshers, and that we would teach them. And I remember for 3 months, me and Sumit, and Sumit was the other co-founder, and he was looking at the commercial functions and so on. We would take classes, literally 3 hours every day. We would take classes, right? That this is what this means. This is how it would be done, like proper classroom training. Like we would make them sit and tell them ABC, like this is how the tech would work. This is how this works. This is how content would be done. This is how this is how you would do metrics and this, that. It took us 3 months to like explain all of that. But I'm, all, like if you think of all of these guys now, some of them are doing really, really well. They've set up their own companies in Dhaka. A dude runs $1 billion business already, etc. So I'm really proud of that, and it was a lot of fun. And they actually, because I knew Bengali, I could speak Bengali, they loved me. So that was
Yeah,
an
that happened.
advantage. So that happened. And then we grew like super fast, and then I'll tell you like a shit show, like literally. So the first Black Friday, or like Black Friday event we did with Daraz. So Daraz was the company we were setting up there. We Sumit went and cracked this very big deal with Robi. So Robi is like Airtel, right? It's one of the biggest telecom players
Mm-hmm.
in Bangladesh. He went and cracked a deal with them where they would promote Daraz Black Friday in their stores. They had like 10,000 stores across the city, only in Dhaka. They would
Oh wow.
also do offline stuff. I don't know how he cracked it. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how he cracked it. I don't know. But he got them to do TV ads, right, for free. Uh,
Oh wow.
and and we were doing, say, like 1,500 orders a day at that point of time, which is like decent. It had been like, I think, around 10 months that things had launched and so on. And then he comes to me and he's like, dude, we're doing whatever 1500. I think with all of these things that Robbie will do, we'll go to like maybe 5,000, say 7,000. So I was like, fuck, that's like 5-6 times the capacity, man. How will, and we are, this is like say 15-20 days left. And but he's like, no, we have to, like, obviously we have to do it, right? Like, you won't get these kind of opportunities, so we have to do it.
Yeah.
So we figured out various things, like crowdsourced three logistics player, like actual people with like just cars and motorbikes and so on. Like, how do we like build up that capacity in like a month? We're able to do that. Tech was slightly flimsy, but still figured out a jugaad, right? And then when the event started, instead of like 5,000 or 7,000, we got 30,000 orders, right? We got 30,000
Wow.
orders. And I remember for 9 days, none of my like ops team, including me, we didn't sleep. Like we could sleep maybe half an hour. Somebody would wake us. We were all just in the office. There like beds put in the office, and like not like proper beds, but just like,
Yeah.
and people are just sleeping. Some dude had then started a leaderboard that who has not slept for how long, and then people are like, there's a competition going on around that. But it was a shit show. It was like, honestly, it was a shit show, because imagine, like, it's like 30 times, nearly 20-25 times the capacity we were used to. It's 5x 5-6x the capacity we have planned for, which is also a plan which we have never done before, etc. And like literally shit hit the fan. I was looking at customer service and everything, so it was like literally, it was a like from the ops side, it was a disaster. Sumit was like,
Yeah.
wow, I have like done like 10 times or whatever, 3 times my target, and everything is amazing. I'm like, who the fuck is going to deliver all of this now?
Yeah, that's your
Right?
problem,
But
right?
so that happened, and that's your problem, right? And I was like, this is like such a thankless job, right? All my dudes are like staying up and not slept for 10 days, and all they get to hear is like, oh, this customer is complaining, that is happening,
Yeah.
that is happening, right? But it was loads of fun. We became like, obviously we were super, and I think like the fact that we were super close before was the only reason that we could kind of pull it off, at least, right? We still ended up, yeah, things were delayed by 15 days and so on, but we ended up delivering 94% of the orders we got. Our SLAs were obviously screwed, but apart from that, everything was pretty much handled, right? And Daraz suddenly became like super big, because now everybody had seen us on TV. And like when I would say that I work for Daraz, people would know, oh, that Daraz, and so on. It was a lot of fun, but it was super super intense. And I think because of that, honestly, I decided that I don't want to do now ops roles. i've set
Yeah.
up I've set up ops and I've done all of this, but this is just like, and I remember I still say that, right? For especially for like commerce or any sort of, whether it be digital commerce or offline, supply chain, logistics, distribution is actually very very critical. But there's no there is no glamour. It's not about even glamour, but it's like they never get even a pat on the back that, okay,
Yeah.
you did you delivered 100%, met your SLAs and things like that, because that is your job, you're
That is your
supposed to
job.
do,
Yeah.
right? And when you don't, when the only thing you hear is, oh, everything is a shit show and this and that, right? So that happened, and then I decided, and I think because we had seen such a high, such a low, everything together, I started getting that, okay, I've done it, I've set it up now, I've taken something from 0 orders to like 30,000 orders, or at least we had built up by then capacity to 10-15,000 orders. So I don't really then need to I didn't want to do that even more. And because, again, as I said, I like things to be exciting and setting things up and so on. The marginal improvement and the efficiencies, then I said like somebody else can do. So they hired somebody else. I moved on with Rocket to Nigeria this time. Again, my friends were
Oh,
like, oh.
nice. I also lived in Nigeria.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And then my friends were like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like,
Jumia.
now, Jumia, correct. So, and they're like, now you going to Nigeria? Like, who would want to, like, I was like, anyways, it is fun. Hopefully, I like how they dance. So let's see. maybe.
Yeah, I've told Akshay about it. Where were you in? Which city?
I was in Lagos, so
Oh, Lego. Have you been to Silver Fox?
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Uh,
So
okay, we need to discuss stories about Silver Fox. So were you
when
were in
which
VI? You were in VI
correct,
mostly?
correct. So
Yeah.
we lived in Victoria Island. The office was in Ikeja, so we always missed the traffic. It was the opposite side. I loved it. But and I would say it was one of the most fun times. I lived there for a year, but it was one of the most fun times I've had. Yeah, so went to Lagos, and this time I and because I'd already spoken to whatever, and I said I didn't want ops sort of roles. I want commercial roles. So I they that time Jumia. So this is like 2000. This is like 2016, like late 2016, so on. So and Jumia was a retail, like, so if you think of an e-commerce business, right, you can either buy products and keep them in your warehouse, or you can go the Alibaba Amazon marketplace route, right, where you have
Mhm.
vendors who will ship and things like that. So they were mostly like very retail focused. They had inventory problems. Obviously, when you buy inventory and especially when you don't have a lot of data to figure out will this move, not move, etc. So they had a big inventory problem. Unit economics were slightly like any other e-commerce business at that time, was slightly dodgy, and so on. So I was pretty much, I went to set up the marketplace business. So I was made head of marketplace for Jumia Nigeria. My role was pretty much to onboard vendors, train them, uh, build out a wholesaler central, build out the marketing tools needed by the vendor, and so on and so forth, and manage that whole piece. So did that for a year. Loads of crazy stories out of Nigeria. So Nigeria was fun. We used to like party all the time. Then it
Mm.
became a bit too much, too intense. And I think by this time Rocket had become too intense. So this was already like 4.5 years with Rocket,
Mm.
and I think I was feeling a bit burnt out. And it's like, because it's like, like intense work, then intense partying, and like everything is like
Yeah.
just super intense, and I'm like, dude, I need to like chill out for a bit. Like this is uh so I contemplated what to do, where to move next, right? And obviously e-commerce was the only thing I knew. So I really wanted to move to Brazil or something. That's what my aim was, right? So
And you just said that you thought everything was too intense and you wanted to chill out. And that was the reason why you wanted to go to Brazil.
like, yeah, like I don't, like there were other reasons involved. Right. One of my trips, I'd met this Brazilian lady in Vietnam, and whatever. So, old story. So, wanted to move to South America. Really tried. So Mercado Libre was the biggest e-commerce player there, right? So Rocket had things internally, but I didn't want to be with Rocket because it was like, it had been a
Yeah.
while. It was too intense. I was moving up, and it was getting super political in Rocket,
Mm.
right, in the whatever, and I didn't want to do that, right? I like to work, do good work. I don't want to, like, you know and I think maybe I was too young for that. I've now realized you always will have to do that. But anyways, so then pretty much, yeah, tried really hard. I think for 2 months, 3 months maybe, I kept like trying to get in touch with different folks at Mercado Libre. And then I remember one guy, I still remember his name, Sean Summers. He was, I think, VP of Marketplace or something for all of Latin America for them. And he replied finally, right, on LinkedIn saying, dude, you know what happened today? That the people were talking about you, that who is this mad Indian guy who is pinging everybody and wants to move to Brazil. And he's like, but let's talk, right? So that's how, like, I started a conversation with him. We liked each other, etc. But then he said that, dude, you won't be able to, like, especially if you want to do like marketplace commercial related stuff, you need to know Spanish or Portuguese or something. You won't be able to work.
Mm.
So I made a promise to him which I'd never fulfilled, that I'll learn Spanish in 6 months, and then we'll talk again, and then I'll move. Because by that time, somebody from like the Alibaba guys actually reached out, because Daraz had been sold to Alibaba. There was some folks who knew me. I don't know how, actually, because I never worked with him or whatever. But somebody reached out, from the Alibaba team saying they are investing $1 billion into Tokopedia, which was an Indonesian e-commerce player, and they're looking to hire people for different verticals, and they want to set up something similar to Alipay. So then I got super excited because it was digital. It would still be things I know, but it was going to move to, like, this was like a fintech play, right? So they wanted to build some like exactly something like WeChat Pay, Alipay, Paytm, right? So for Indonesia, and the guy leading, they called this the whole fintech Toko Cash unit. The guy leading that unit was an Indian dude from Ahmedabad. They put me in touch with him, and we spoke. That was a weird process. Our interview process was weird because we kept talking for like 3 months on and off, right? Like, we would have a conversation, he would go silent, and then suddenly 3 months later he's like, you're hired. I'm like, what? Like, we had the conversation like 3 months ago, man. Like, I'm like,
It's like the initial phases of dating, you know.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, what is happening? So I was like, okay, like, Indonesia doesn't sound bad. And one of the guys, like one of my bosses, when I was like one of the, he was actually the CEO of Rocket APAC, right? He had spent loads of time in Indonesia. I spoke to him. He said like Tokopedia is huge in Indonesia. It's everywhere, etc., etc. And it's a great place to live. It's chilled out. It will be like different from, the standard e-commerce stuff you've done. So I said like, sounds good, pretty much. And that's how I jumped ship from Lagos to Jakarta.
So
So
by this time, did you have some? Would you say like you had some idea of, because initially like it sounded like you've been going with the flow so far when it comes to the which country to go to and what opportunity to go with. Did you have some sort of an idea in your mind ever started to form, like, okay, this is where I would like to be at some point, or right now it was still like, I'm just gonna
no,
see how it comes.
at this stage it is still like, new country, let's go, let's see how is it for a year, then we'll figure out. So then when I went to Indonesia, things started changing. I'll come to that. So I went to Indonesia. I started working on the whole Toko Cash piece, set up the wallet, got like, so it's pretty much like Paytm, right? You can pay your bills, you can pay this, you can pay that. We have to like figure out all the partnerships, set up all the tech. This is the first time now I get a bit of flavor of product and tech, because
Mm-hmm.
this was under us, and what has to be built, and what's like consumer facing tech. Like in Rocket, I had done like seller or market or vendor facing tech, like how should
B2B
the
tech.
seller center be
Yeah.
correct. So this is the first time I got a flavor of consumer tech, and how should the flow be, what are the features, da 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 da, right? And I absolutely like really loved it. That was the big thing about that role, apart from like because the other stuff was still similar, like onboarding vendor versus onboarding a partner is similar maybe, but the tech piece was fun. It got me into data, got me into tech, right? Like all of those things. And that's when I started maybe thinking that product management is what I should have done. uh, but anyways, right, like so did that for a bit, and unfortunately we hit a bit of a snag there. Couple of snags, both like personally and professionally. Professionally, our license got revoked. The Bank of Indonesia set up some rules that you need to have this license and 100 different things, which we obviously hadn't done. And then so we had to shelve it. Like, we have to pretty much put it on hold. They said you can't do it. Put it on hold. We applied for all the legalities.
And
It
you had spent a few
and
months on it already.
Yeah, we had spent like 6 months on it. We had built it, launched it. We had like partnerships with Uber, Expedia,
Yeah.
your electricity providers, your water bill, like all of this. We had like 21 categories set up, launched, and it had hit the ground, and it had been live for around 2.5 months already. And then they said like, you have to figure stuff out. Now that happened, so it became slightly came to a halt. And then I think one piece which happened to me in Indonesia, and then I realized that maybe I like the Rocket intensity, is that Indonesia was a bit too chilled out, right, in terms of work.
Mm.
Right, it was a bit too chilled out. and in a sense, I was a bit too rude for the country. Is how like I now think of it, right? Because one, I'm anyways very direct. I have slightly, I like, my mom still says that, you sound rude and you're never polite, and things like that. And Rocket had made me even more so, right? That it is very business, right? Get this number and get this done, and I don't care how you will do it, and whatever was the Rocket mentality, which
Mm.
I kind of brought in. And this is the first time my team hated me. I remember now. This was because before this, everywhere I had gone, my team was somehow, I don't know for what reason, we really got along. We really and they worked for me properly. This was the first time in the first few months I realized that my team, I maybe hate is a strong word, but they didn't
Yeah,
like me, right?
yeah,
They didn't like me, etc. And if the team doesn't like you, right, and if they won't work for you, they don't, go behind you with things, and so on. So, and then I had I think a very heart to heart conversation with Tokopedia's CEO, and he was like, "Dude, you need to like, this is like just in terms of culture, right?" He was like, "You have to be like nicer, right? You cannot be like, why the fuck is this not done, and I don't care, get this shit done. You have to like be nicer, you have to know them personally, you have to spend time with them, and things like that." And I, at that stage of my career, and I think I was still, maybe it had already been like 5-6 years now I've been working and things like that, but I was, because I think it was the Rocket mentality, or whatever you call it, I wasn't exactly ready for it. I was like, something which can get done in a day, why is it taking like 1 week,
yeah. No, I
right?
totally relate to that. Like when I moved from Cars 24 to here, booking in Europe, it was exactly the similar change. I don't know how Europe is compared to Indonesia, but you definitely have to play nice. You have to make sure that the group kind of goes together. You have to make sure that everyone sort of understands. You have to make sure that everyone feels like their opinion is valued. And it took me quite a lot of time to get a hang of it. Like, okay, it's not that, yes, of course, getting shit done is important, but getting shit done the right way through the people is a lot
Correct.
more important in some cultures. So yeah.
No, and I think, and that's when I realized, I would say this, I was too, whatever, naive or like ignorant, and things, and I was like, I don't want to waste time on this, right? I'm here to build something. I want to build something quick. And I think, William, who was the CEO of Tokopedia, he and I also slightly disagreed on the methodology, right?
Hmm.
Which now I realize his methodology was the right one, is the right one for sure. But at that point, because he wanted to build, like like a sustainable, profitable business,
Mm.
which is what you should be doing when it is a business, right? But we had come from like the other guys they had hired also, like there were two dudes from Rocket, and we had come from a valuation mentality, right? Like, I need to get
Mm.
my valuation to this, is a KPI that Rocket will
Yeah,
have, right? Because Rocket's model is that, okay, build a business, get it big, sell it, build a
yeah.
business, get it big, sell it, right? And this dude wasn't in it for, like, he really, and I really respect him now. I had loads of fights with him then, but his mentality was, we want to build something long term. He wanted to digitize the nation, and I would at that point be like, what are you trying to do, trying to save the world, or we are here to like make money, right? What are we doing? But like, I think you learn from people and so on. So we kind of didn't get along. There were like things about, and this whole project had kind of stalled, right? And that's when Shopee reached out. So Shopee is at that point was literally catching up to Tokopedia in Indonesia, but was already super big in all of the other Southeast East Asian markets. Shopee reached out and and offered me a role. The guy, the CEO of Shopee, his name is Chris Feng. He was also Rocket Internet. The COO was Rocket Internet. They had set up Zalora in Thailand, and so on and so forth. So he reached out, offered me fairly insane money, and I was like, okay, right. So that's when I moved to Shopee, and I still think that was a bad decision.
And this was
Not
another country as well.
This was initially in Indonesia. The first 3 months were in Indonesia, but it was a regional role. So what we were trying to build was so Shopee was C2C, Tokopedia was C2C, right? They wanted, but obviously they had become huge in the C2C space. They wanted to become B2C, get brands onboarded, etc. Shopee had the same idea of creating Shopee Pay, etc., etc. Shopee was part of the Garena group, now the C group, and like the gaming company was a cash cow making tons of money, so they didn't have problems with money. All of us were from Rocket, pretty much. We aligned, I thought, in
Values and culture.
the way we would do things,
Yeah.
right or wrong. Now I think maybe the wrong way, but we would align on those things. So I took a role, but this is the first time I took a role which did not have, I would say, direct KPIs. What I'm like, obviously I had KPIs, but in a way where, like, when I was doing ops, I would have, like, SLA and all of those metrics that I would need to manage. When you're doing commercial, obviously you have sales and P&L accountability and things like that. This was a more strategy role, right? So it was about how do we get Shopee from a C2C to a B2C thing. Obviously, it involved multiple things around what should we do in tech, what should we do in partnerships, what should we do in things like that. But it was all about getting things done from other people, right? So I am not the head of commercial. I am not the head of logistics. I am not the head of whatever. I am coming up with a strategy,
Yeah.
and then I influence all of these people to get things done.
And so far, it sounds like you're going to do amazing at it.
And
and there is a
exactly. And I, again, like, literally horribly failed at it, because I don't know, man. Like, it's just like, with time I've understood, there is a need for people, and people are important and things like that. But at that point, my mentality had and has always been, and it's still to a certain degree is, but I try to, like, manage it, that I can do everything. Don't worry, right? Like, I'll push through, and I'll get shit done, and if nobody does it, I'll do it myself. Right. That's the kind of, but it did, obviously that's not something that can work, right? Shopee was already a fairly big organization. It was already, there was some level of bureaucracy. We agreed, leadership agreed on the thought process, but it is pretty much, you're a consultant within the organization, right? And you're not getting to implement anything. You have to, like, massage everyone to do stuff, etc. And again, I hated it. I hated it, but it got me to, again, I moved to for the first 3 months I was in Indonesia, and actually I was supposed to be based out of Singapore, but I had lived in Bangladesh and Nigeria, and Jakarta is a bit chaotic. I did not want to live in Singapore, because I was like, this is going to be, like, boring. So I was like, I'll live in whatever countries, wherever we are setting stuff up, I'll live there, I'll move around, don't worry. So I was in Indonesia for 3 months, then I was in Philippines for 6 months. Then I had to, they were like, dude, you can't keep doing this. Then I had to, like, come to Singapore. I stayed in Singapore for a year. So yeah, that happened. And I fell in love with Southeast Asia at that point. And I understood, and I still regret actually moving out of there. But I understood that, this, because I understand now, maybe at that point I didn't understand exactly, but that was the next big thing. There were things happening there which, like, weren't happening anywhere else. It would have been great if I had just stayed there. But I think, the chaotic whatever thing in me, again, kind of happened. And with Shopee, then I understood that I am not good in big companies, is what I or started thinking, right, in my head, that I, like, where there are, like, so many different business units. You have to, like, manage bureaucracy, be diplomatic, political, things like that. I like, this is not, like, I wasn't enjoying it because I wasn't good at it. Right.
yeah.
Fairly. So that's when I realized that. And then again, out of the blue, some random dude who's now one of my very close friends here, in Dubai, he reached out, and he was setting up, he was ex Amazon, had worked in Amazon UK for like 8-10 years. He reached out. He was setting up the Middle East, North Africa, Turkey, India businesses for a company called Pattern. It's a Salt Lake City based US startup. It's easiest way to explain it's like Thrasio. I don't know if you guys have heard of Thrasio, but it's like the roll up or Mensa brands in India. There are multiple different
Mhm.
players now doing this, which is where you buy an e-commerce brand or a D2C
And
brand,
you
you
try
buy
to,
it. You buy, it's called the roll up model, right? You buy
yeah.
multiple of these and you try to then grow it and things like that. And so that happened, and at that point I was dating somebody who lived in Prague, and I was in Singapore, and I was like, okay, maybe. And we were like, it was getting serious. We were whatever, traveling every 2 weeks. She would come to Singapore, I would go to Europe, and it was getting a bit also intense,
Yeah.
traveling that much and so on. So I thought like maybe Dubai, and she had been to Dubai. She really loved Dubai, etc. So I thought maybe Dubai, right? And again, so that's how then moved. So even that, like when I was in Indonesia, when I was in Southeast Asia, I knew that this is where I should be, and this is where I would like to maybe build something, and we would ideate things. And that's from there I started actually kind of thinking like I should do something of my own. I should do something of my own. But I honestly didn't have the balls then, and like was scared and be like, okay, let's I'm getting high paying jobs, so let's just do that.
Mm.
Why take a risk? I think it's also like Indian middle class mentality, right? Like you have a good job, you're settled, everything is comfortable. Why do you
And
suddenly want to like,
plus, you're not in your own home ground. You're not in your
and
home
you
country.
don't know anybody, you
Yeah.
like, you're just like, so I was scared. I wish I wasn't, but like I was. And again, this thing happened. I wasn't, as I was saying, I wasn't really happy with what was happening at Shopee. Like, wasn't enjoying it, wasn't doing a good job. So, and this was about setting something up, right? Again, it was like there was nothing, it was setting something up. So I was like, why not, right? And now different country again. So till now here, pretty much I have moved countries every year, right? Like since I stepped foot out of India, I have now moved countries every year. I have changed some place, right? So from 2014, 16, 17, 18, 19. So it is pretty much every year I'm staying in some place, and living in different places. I'll like there were very good things about it, that I would see new cultures, new people, different places, would get to travel, etc. But there were bad things about it. I never felt at home till now. Like this is now 2000, getting like I moved to Dubai in 2019. So till 2019 all of my belongings could be fit in one suitcase, pretty much like one big 30-40 kg suitcase. Everything I owned could be fit into into that. uh, I liked it, right? Yeah, I was just tell my mom like minimalistic living and don't need so many things, and it is better to spend on experiences and so on, which is I still believe in that. But the thing is, you never get kind of settled, right? I think the only place I felt settled was to certain degree in Lagos for 6 months, in Jakarta, because I had made friends, right? Otherwise, people. Obviously, people. You go out with them. You go have dinner, and date a few people, and you go and party with a few people. But it's all very superficial, right? You don't really can't really discuss heart to heart, and like can't discuss कि यार मतलब I don't feel well, or I don't feel good. I don't know what I need to do with my life, and
So did
like
you
what
did
should
you
I.
have someone with whom you were able to discuss this during all of this time? Because of course, I'm guessing that's not happening in that country. So who was that person then? Because you still need someone.
True. So like I still have a very close set of friends, like
Mhm.
like six of us. Some of them are from Peck, some of them are from Joka. They have all kind of met each other now through me, and like somehow we have been able to make a group of these kind of friends, and they would be the ones I would discuss any sort of life updates, right? Good,
Yeah.
bad. or what needs to be done. But then people also start getting busy, right? Like, so now out of all of these 6 people, only one guy now lives in India, one lives in Ireland, one lives in the US, one lives in Amsterdam, two actually live in Amsterdam,
Oh wow. Okay.
one lives in Canada, and so on, right? So there people move, people started getting married. Obviously they would have less and less time. I was such a bad friend that I didn't even go to their weddings because I was somewhere and I couldn't come, and things like that. So, and I I met their wives now finally over time, but I wouldn't know their wives. So life kind of changes, and you can't. Nobody has that much time, etc. So I started, but I did have, I made very good, one very close friend, who's an Estonian guy. He now lives back in Tallinn. I made a very good friend there, and then another guy in Indonesia, Indian Bengali dude, who still lives in Jakarta. So I made a friend there. Uh, but again, when we were there in the same country, living next to each other, etc., we would talk
Yeah,
and
of
so on.
course.
But like when you keep moving around, it then kind of becomes a bit. So that was the struggle. Obviously, I would talk to family. I would talk to, if I had a serious relationship at that point, I would talk to them, etc. But like they wouldn't get a lot of the work stuff, right? So things were. So that's the first time I think I, like, when I moved to Dubai is when I started feeling a bit, um I think lonely, maybe, or like
Mhm.
the word, right? Like, because you have like just superficial connections, that you don't give a shit about them, honestly, they don't give a shit about you. It's just like, okay, right, like we have to do something, hanging out with people, etc. And that's when I think I understood the importance of people, of other people, right? That And one of my mentors, he's also an Estonian guy, who was he was CEO of Rocket APAC. He told me that, and I think that is the best feedback anybody has ever given me, is that you have something called like Superman complex. And he's like, you don't have to do everything yourself, you can ask for help, and you don't have to do it, you don't have to be like great at everything. Like, one of the big reasons I think in my college days I wasn't, say, super, I did not apply myself, I think is the diplomatic way of putting it, is because I would try things, if I thought I wasn't good at something, I just wouldn't do it, right? Like, I had this fear of, I don't know, like, not being good at something, fear of failing, things like that. But then when I moved to Dubai, like, I understood the need of people. This guy gave me all this advice, and that's when, for the first time in my life, I thought that I need to make proper connections, like new connections with the people I work with the people I see around, give everybody a chance, in a way, right? There needs to be some, you need to put yourself in a situation where you can become friends with somebody and start really talking about things. And if from yourself you're closed, and you want to keep it very macro, obviously the other person will respond the same way, and you would never have those kind of deep connections, right? And so, yeah, moved to Dubai. The guy who hired me is now one of my best friends here. We meet pretty much. We are both off alcohol in for this year, so now we meet and drink coffee. Before that, we would meet and drink beers and talk about life and what we want to do. And obviously, he's slightly older to me, like 3 years older to me. So he has.
I'm trying to get my set of friends here. One of them is a particularly difficult one, but I have been off alcohol for quite some time, and that means you usually are the hated one for bringing the energy of the group down.
Yeah, man. Like, honestly, I think I needed to get off alcohol, right? Because, uh, I'll tell you that story also when I come come to it. So yeah, it was. So I moved to Dubai. Got married and
Oh,
divorced. Um,
Oh,
so
oh, wow. Okay, that was like
no, you,
10
you
5 seconds.
you touched it very lightly, but maybe it's good to touch upon. You were talking about making strong connections, right? So on the romantic side, you did mention briefly. So
yeah,
could
so
you
the
maybe throw
the the
some
lady
light
I was
on
dating, yeah,
how
the
did you
lady
meet people? How did you meet women? and how did that pan
So
out for you?
yeah, so the like obviously when you're in some country, you meet women the standard online way, right? Tinder, Bumble, etc., etc. But I met like my ex-wife's name is Valerie. I met Valerie in Berlin actually when I was in Africa, and we had to travel sometimes for like rocket internet related stuff, sometimes to the HQ, sometimes to Porto, etc. So I met her randomly through a friend there. We were just friends, right? Like there was something, but we were friends, etc. And then obviously I moved to Indonesia. We kept in touch. I moved to Indonesia, then I moved to Philippines. Then when I was in Singapore, I in actually in between my Tokopedia and Shopee stint, I took like a month off to travel. So I went to Europe. I went to Northern Europe, etc., etc. I met her again there, and that's when like we kind of started dating,
Mhm.
right? And then when I was living in Singapore, she came to Singapore for a bit, stayed for 2-3 months, and that's one of the big reasons actually of moving to Dubai was her, right?
Mhm.
Because she was in Prague, it would be closer. We won't have to take like 12-hour flights and things like that. And she liked the city. She had multiple times. She had been offered multiple jobs in the city as well. So that would have kind of happened. So yeah, like, and I moved here, and that's and like things didn't work out how they were supposed to, but we're still like very good friends and so on. But I moved here in 2019. We got married in 2020, right? And it was, and exactly, I think because it was my phase of thinking that because even that then romantically also before that I was like, it's okay, I don't want to get married, it's fine, right? I don't need to have like a long term partner and things like that. But when exactly, I think when I moved to Dubai, I was feeling slightly alone. I was thinking like and I understood that you need to have proper connections, you need to have people who will support you through stuff and so on, right? We got married. I wouldn't go into things why we got divorced, but then like 22 is when we got divorced. So I couldn't last it longer than 2 years, but it was very it was very amicable, very mature, sort of, because we were like, according to her, we were thinking of like our lives going in different direction, we wanted to do different things, etc. So she still lives here, very very close by. We meet, I think, once every 2 weeks. I discuss a lot of important stuff with her, because she deeply knows me and she understands how my head functions. So I still have that connection. It is not a romantic connection anymore, but I still have that connection. So yeah, and did my stuff in Dubai. Again, I think, and something I've been trying to fight with myself is I'm super impatient, and like I need some excitement happening all the time, right? My therapist says I love chaos, and there's some whatever. So,
No,
so
thanks.
yeah,
I would like to ask you one thing. So you
Hmm.
have been to many places. I've also
Right.
lived in 5 countries. What is it that you are seeking? If somebody was to ask you this question,
Man, I've been asking this question to myself for a very long time, and I think like, and that's like one of the reasons when my relationship didn't work out, I went to therapy, right? Like, and before that, it was always, I was like, these are like, honestly, my opinion was, these are like first world problems, right? We have enough problems to deal with, right? I don't want to do all of this, and because my ex-wife is from the first world, she kind of I think forced me to. She made me like go. She's like, whatever the fuck, you
or it's
need to
like a
go.
sign of weakness in Eastern cultures, like
Correct. I don't think I felt that it is a sign of weakness. I think, man, like how we grow up, right? We grew up in a very, like, say, middle class, lower middle class sort of a family. Our parents always said that don't be too emotional somehow, right? Is what you don't be too emotional. Shit happens. Get stand up, move on, right? That's the mentality we kind of, at least I grew up with, and that's the mentality I have, that there's no point of moping about shit, and like let's just, okay, something happened now, like
Mhm.
get stuff done, let's move on. But I think Valerie and because I listened to her, I really value her. She for the first time explained to me that, dude, you need to think, like, why some shit happens, right? Why the shit happens? Why do you need to, like, why do you get bored every year? Why do you need to, like, move countries? And like, because for one reason where we were also kind of like, I was then also thinking like, I don't want to be in Dubai anymore. I've been here, like, it's been 2 years. Maybe let's go somewhere else. And she's like, there is something wrong, right? You can't live life like this. Like, she didn't say wrong, but she said there is something, like, you need to
Yeah.
talk it through, that you can't live like what will you do, like, till 50? You will just keep moving to different countries. You will run out of countries, and it will take a hit on your career. It'll be like you'll never feel settled, etc, 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 right? And so yeah, so I went. I'm still trying to figure out what am I seeking, honestly. But I think what I truly believe is, and this is maybe like a conversation I had with my therapist, is I really wanted to become like do something with music, and become a rock star. And I fucking behaved like that half the time as well,
Mhm.
which is super lame. But anyways, right? And I think like the thing was, like, I want to do something cool, right? Like something not what is standard. I don't want the standard, family, big house, 2 cars, 2 dogs, beautiful garden. I
Can I
don't, yeah, man.
you
Yeah.
said a statement over there like you wanted to live like a rock star, and then you said which is lame. Can you explain why do you say that is lame?
Like, it is
Because
not
I
lame.
don't because yeah, I don't think, right? Like it's
It is not lame, but like, what I meant was like, I behaved like, or I lived like that. You
Mhm.
live like a rock star when you are a rock star, right? You don't live like a rock star when you're like whatever. That's what I mean by
Mhm.
like lame.
Mhm.
Uh, but like, and I felt like, so yeah, just on that point, and I realized that I just, I was drinking too much, I was doing a lot of other things, and which is all, it is not really productive. I like to, like, I remember I used to joke with my friends that, I'm a high functioning alcoholic. Which is uh like, that, yes, it doesn't matter, right? I can party till 5 a.m, I can still get up at 9 a.m, and then I can get my shit done. Right? So professionally, I wasn't taking a hit, but then I've been to therapy now, and then, my therapist says there are 5 things you have to be good at, and being only professionally good is not, you're like, what, this is like 20%, right? So you're not living life, how, whatever. So I would always have that excuse that, I'm doing well professionally, I can do whatever the fuck,
Mhm.
and things like that. And that's one, now the reason I'm off alcohol, and yeah.
If you look at Samrat at 2011 or maybe at 13 when you were graduating from Joka, and you look at the trajectory for next 11 years, which has been on paper amazing, and also otherwise as well, but the details are not there on the paper, right? Sometimes.
Correct.
What would you tell yourself that was really as expected, and what are some of the things which a young person graduating from an IIM or at that age should be more mindful of or aware of?
Man, honestly, I don't think I am like a good role model in terms of what people should be doing when they are in, say, in an IIM. Like, the one thing I really regret, honestly, is I kind of wasted those years, honestly, right? Like, because I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do the standard
You mean
consulting investment bank.
which years are you referring to?
The college years, right? The
Yeah, okay.
college years, and I think I was super naive that, but I should have made the most of it in a way that you get to learn from people, and you get to, I did make friends, and all of that, but really, like, professionally, if I think of what I could have gotten out of it professionally versus what I did, there is a big, so I the only thing I would say is, give it your best shot, right? And uh, do it with intention, right? If you are just half-heartedly doing something, then don't do
Mhm.
it. So do it with intention, and just don't do it because, okay, like, I got 99 percentile in cat, so let's just do it. That's how I did it. And right, and it doesn't kind of, you're not, it's disrespecting the institute, it's disrespecting what you could have achieved and could have done. Now, career wise, trajectory wise, I never wanted to do what I'm doing. I always thought I would go back to music, and I was trying to figure out things how I could make money in music. But then I realized, I think what happened with me is when I started applying myself, and I started seeing that this is fun, and we are building something, and something is coming out of it, etc. It was giving me that same dopamine rush that music does, right? Like, so that started happening, and that's how my career trajectory went a certain way. So it wasn't expected. It wasn't what I would do. I think if you ask any of my friends in IIM Calcutta, they would also say like, okay, like this wasn't expected, right? But anyways, it happened. Good, I think. But the other thing also I've now realized is, everything takes time. Everything, you need to do everything patiently. You have to give everything enough time. Professionally, I have made some, I would say, if I look financially and professionally, I've made some wrong decisions, right? I could have stayed somewhere longer. I could have come out fairly financially well off. I'm not saying I'm not financially well off, but like proper well off, right? When some of these companies exited, had I vested more shares and things like that, right? So now, and that is one big reason that I finally started my own thing. One, obviously, I feel financially much more secure. I can, if there's enough for me to kind of like manage and not worry about how much money I'm making every month, and things like that. But also to teach myself patience, right? To teach myself that you can't. And this has been an extremely intense roller coaster. So I started my company December of 20 after, like working for everybody think. And then after the pattern gig, or the startup I was talking about, which I moved for to Dubai. And again, what happened is, even though I'm best friends with David and loads of the guys there, we set up the Middle East, we set up UAE, Saudi, Turkey, India. We set it up. Once the setup was over, and now it was time to like just run things and work on efficiencies, etc. Again, I got a bit that this is not interesting anymore. And then I moved to a family group here called GMG. So in the Middle East, if you're an international brand, you have to pretty much do a kind of a JV with one of these family houses. So they run Nike, Under Armour, Sun and Sunsport, like all the sports brands in the region, their stores, their online presence, everything is run by them. So I was like heading all of their digital teams pretty much. So e-commerce, marketing, product analytics, etc. Again, I loved it for 6 months because it was a super small business, right? And the CEO had given me that from X% it has to go to Y% of the business. Let's see how fast you can do it and things like that. He gave me enough leeway. Again, I liked it. I did it. We went there in a year. I did the numbers I needed to do, hired loads of amazing people who are now. So the one thing I now at least did well in Dubai is I made friends, right? Friends, proper friends outside of just like work, superficial connections and things like that. Loads of people I hired from IIM Calcutta, just kind of giving back, because a lot of my breaks were given to me by people from Joka. So I kind of did the same. Loads of these people I'm very good friends with. But again, the same thing happened, or the same thing started happening, that I've set everything up. Now everything is running on autopilot. We have done our numbers. Now it's no longer like I cannot do 5x growth every year, because, like that, like you, this is not possible, right? Like now it is like, okay, 10% efficiency and this and that. And I was like, again, this is boring. Right. So one thing, and obviously I understand, and I think I know this is a problem I have, or it's a weakness in a way. And like on paper as well, like my mom had started saying, dude, like it will look weird, like you're moving every year, like what is happening? And I'm like, and then I was like, initially, like, this is not like 1970s, right? Like you don't need to be in one company for 20 years. And then she's like, but you don't also like change everything in 1 year, 1.5 year. So but that started happening, and then I understood the importance of patience, and then I finally also understood that I would never be able to patiently stick through the, there are the highs. I love the highs when I'm working or with anything, right? So there are these good moments when you do great, etc. Then there is a lull, and I will never be able to go through the lull for somebody else, right? So
Hmm.
I need to, for myself, and maybe it works, it does not work, I don't know how the business would go, right? But it is for me to learn patience, for me to learn that, something, if you want to build something cool, as I like to say, it will take time. It will not be that you do something and wow, right? Like things go off the ground and you're whatever. And I have learned that with socially over the time, right? Like everything, I, as usual, want things to be done in 3 months. Those, like, a lot of those things are not in your control, right? So instead of the 3 months, it took 9 months. Something else happened, etc., etc., etc. And at least, but I have said that I will not give up, right? And I cannot give up because this is now, this is my own show. It is not that I cannot just be like, why take this? Why take the pain for somebody else? But this is my own show. I have to kind of stick to it. And it has been fairly intense. Some really good times, like at this point in time, business is going fairly well, but there are some, and it's a daily kind of thing. Like, for example, like 2 days ago I was thinking, like, why the fuck did I decide to do this, right? Like and I was actually cribbing to David that I opened up my company to, like, do cool stuff, right? Build something nice and, really build something, build a business, etc. All I'm doing is begging people for money, right? And doing admin crap, right? Like, thank God I have a team, a good enough team who's able to run things, and things are going well. But pretty much the actual time I spend on the business is maybe 1 day out of the 5-6 days, right? Like, we are completely, or 1 day out of the week, I'm actually focused on how should we execute and how are we, what should we do, etc. But that is the thing I like. And other times I am, networking and meeting VCs and pitching, and I've been able to raise some money, trying to raise more, and just, again, like doing like admin stuff and like things like that. But
Would it would it have been like very different if you were doing this in India versus in Dubai?
like, I think the big thing, like, with doing it in your own country, I think it's just there are so many people you can kind of rely on, or
Hmm.
there are, or so many people who will know somebody who will know somebody, and especially in India, right? Like,
Yeah.
uh, there's a lot of stuff which can be, jugad. You can do your jugads and get stuff done, and it's super relationship driven. And if you can find, and obviously because we have the I Am Calcutta Joka network, people are nice and they talk to each other, they want to help you, at least that is there. And obviously, we have people in very good places, obviously abroad as well, but in India that concentration is
Yeah.
much more. And so just being able to rely on other people, I think, would have been easy. For example, raising VC money would have been easier, right? Like, it's because I, like, honestly, and I'm not trying to be whatever, but like, and I think it's slightly bad as well that we can use our I Am Calcutta tag, as people say, but like, what you can use, you have to use, right?
Yeah.
So
You never thought of going back?
man, honestly, no, because I, like, by the time I came to Dubai, I never thought, actually, in between I did think, but then I thought that, like, I want to build something, like I want to do something and then maybe go back, right? Like, I just don't want to go and, like, now what, like, take up a role in India somewhere and do that. Like, I want, like, because I have no, actually, honestly, I have no context of the Indian market also, right? Like, it's been
Hmm.
10-12 years. What, obviously I have loads of friends, I can research and I can talk to them and things like that. But I wouldn't hire myself, right, in India. Like, why would I hire me for, say, a role, whatever role, when you have some dude who's equally smart, who's equally hardworking or even more, and has spent the last decade in India, understands the market, what is happening, etc., etc. So I don't think I would hire me. So I honestly I didn't, hence didn't kind of go. And I think, yeah. So the thing about Dubai, um, the big problem, honestly, it's actually not about Dubai, because the big market in the GCC is obviously Saudi. All the money is in Saudi. All
Mm.
the market is in Saudi. And unfortunately, there is a clear, I would say, disadvantage that I don't speak Arabic. Like, there is, I wasn't in any of their, like, say, the big GCC startups in a way, right? So I wasn't in a Kareem or a Talabat or whatever. So I'm not part of that, say, network. So that is definitely a disadvantage in terms of being able to use other people to get where you want to go faster. I have kind of compensated for that by having a team which has some of those pieces. But again, I'm a bit of a, like a bit of, not a control freak, but I'm a bit like, I like to do things myself. So it kind of, uh, because now I have to let other people do it, because there are some things that, for example, in Saudi, I will just not be able to do. And I'm still trying to come to terms with that fact that, I feel super nervous when I don't know the details in and out of everything. So, but I think that's what you have to also do, and let your team kind of run with things, as long as things are working out. So it definitely would have been easier, I think, had I stayed in India, done it there, etc. Right? But I think there are loads of models which I like, from a just a business model perspective, which wouldn't work in India. It would work here, and you could make really profitable, sustainable businesses here.
Have you had, like, well, I'm guessing probably multiple times. What was the latest identity crisis moment that you can remember?
Man, like all the time, every time, like the whole, like, imposter syndrome, and like all of this, like, fuck, like, can I even do this, and like, what am
Yeah,
I doing, and like,
yeah.
am I good enough? Like, this is like a daily, not daily maybe, but like every other day,
But
like,
are you
can
like, because you mentioned that you recognize that you need to maybe ask and answer this question for yourself, like, why are you doing what you're doing, and what is it that you're seeking out of it? Are you trying to do something to answer that question consciously?
man, on like, therapy is I was forced into it, but I'm doing
Mm.
that,
Mm.
because I it has opened up a lot of things, right?
Yeah,
Like understanding of why, what I want to do, why I want to do them, why is this, something like this, like,
yeah,
at least not just overlooking the why and just moving on. So at least
yeah.
I'm doing that. And then I, like, work wise, I'm constantly thinking, like, why am I doing what am I doing,
Right.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
very honestly, like, money is one thing, right? Like,
Yeah,
but money is like, I could have just kept working. I was making good enough money, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
fine, like,
You probably would
right?
have been a lot better off if you would have thought about just,
Exactly,
just spent it in
exactly,
on the right things.
exactly, exactly, right? So, and so that is not the thing. I think it's a bit about, it's like, might sound shallow or whatever, but it's about like a competition with myself, right?
Mhm.
Proving to myself, can I really build something, right? Am
Yeah,
I, do I, or like, do I have it in me to build something,
yeah,
really drive value, and
yeah.
again, not trying to change the world, but do something which people like and people want to use, and hence I am also, like, even with my business, loads of people have told me, it should have been like, why are you doing something consumer focused, and why are you doing not doing B2B, and things like that, because
Mm.
unfortunately, how the VC ecosystem, or the climate is now, right? People are scared of consumer businesses, and
Yeah,
especially what I'm doing. My competition could be anybody from an Amazon to a TikTok, right? So
yeah, yeah,
everybody's like shitting their pants,
yeah.
right? That, like, what the fuck? Like, why you have, like, I remember one of my investors who finally then invested in me. Is like, why have you taken the most toughest possible problem, and have chosen the most toughest possible way to solve it?
Mm, mhm,
and
mhm, mhm.
and right, so that's happening, so
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
background, and I'm trying to, like, figure out, hopefully I'll find out someday.
Yeah, no, that's a topic that's personally like really important to me. Like I've tried to do like a lot of work via like books, podcasts, working with a coach. There are definitely plenty of books on the topic of like purpose, but I think deeply rooted, the one thing that I've learned is like the more we are able to connect to the feeling of, hey, what can I do as a service to others, and the more
Exactly.
I can like connect to that feeling, that slowly becomes more and more clear. And again, like
Correct.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
let's see, just the start of the journey. Hopefully, we'll see how it goes.
yeah.
Uh,
Last thing that I wanted to ask you: do you remember like the Maslow's hierarchy? You know, you have
Correct.
like the physiological, you have security, I think love and relationships, esteem, self-actualization. Would you be able to recognize which level are you playing at the moment?
Well, I thought I was trying to go to self actualization. Now I've gone down to like security, right? But like honestly, like seriously, like that's exactly yesterday I was thinking like, why the fuck did I decide to do this? Right? It is like so much hard work. I'm making so much less money,
Yeah,
right? I could like, and I can't, like, I really love to travel, right? I can't travel because half the time I have to, like, the business is running. I can't just like take off and travel, and
yeah,
I don't party
yeah.
because
No alcohol either.
no alcohol. So I'm like, I really having an identity crisis,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah,
The only thing which has stuck with me is the music. So I do my music and things
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
But then, when you define yourself with a certain set of things, and then you suddenly decide that, okay, these are not, and you shouldn't be defined by the things you do, or you know
yeah,
whatever. And then if those things are detrimental to you, and especially when I'm running a business, right, like the one big reason about like not partying and not drinking and so on is like I can't be like hungover at 9 a.m., and if there's some fucking fire to put out, and I,
yeah,
I need to be on 100%,
yeah.
right? And then I did it, like, for example, like I quit in December, like from New Year's. But I
Mhm.
remember, like, during Black Friday, I got like one of the whatever Saturday nights, I got super, I was partying, got super wasted, woke up next day, and I had like 20 calls from my co-founder and being
Oh
like,
wow.
and I like, fuck, this is not going the right
Yeah,
direction, so I need to like manage it.
yeah,
So work is also something, and it's like, and I think we as people use all of these things to escape, right? When you have like a bad day at work or some shit you don't like, you're like, okay, let's
yeah, yeah,
party and drink, and it's not solving the problem, right? It's not
yeah,
really, not thinking about why
yeah,
and how. You're
yeah.
just escaping.
Yeah.
So,
Have
and
you read
what,
both of Simon Sinek's books? Start with Why and Find Your Why.
correct.
It was probably a while ago, it sounds like.
Yeah, yes, been a while.
Been a while. I think
Yeah.
maybe it's a good time to reread
Time
them.
to refresh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
refresh.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hopefully, let's see.
yeah.
It's a long journey, man. Hopefully.
Yeah, but I do think it really helps if that is something that's really clear to us, because then all the ups and downs, all of the identity crisis moments, you always kind of know like this is the reason why I'm going through all of this shit, making less money, not traveling all over the world, not having an easy life, and that I think it really changes how you feel about every single thing. But man,
True.
overall, what an honest conversation.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. And
Absolutely, man.
and
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
let
thank
me
you for having me.
yes, thank you very much as well.